Hello, sixth graders. Hello, jaguars, cougars, and tigers. We're all hopefully on page 151. Saturday, 12 February, 1944. Dear Kitty, the sun is shining, the sky is a deep blue, there is a lovely breeze, and I'm longing, so longing, for everything. To talk, for freedom, for friends, to be alone. And I do so long to cry. I feel as if I'm going to burst, and I know that it would get better with crying, but I can't. I'm restless. I go from one room to the other, breathe through the crack of a closed window, feel my heart beating as if it is saying, "Can't you satisfy my longings at last?" I believe that it's spring within me. I feel that spring is awakening. I feel it in my whole body and soul. It is an effort to behave normally. I feel utterly confused and don't know what to read, what to write, what to do. I only know that I am longing. Yours, Anne. Sunday, 13 February, 1944. Dear Kitty, since Saturday, a lot has changed for me. It came about like this. I longed and am still longing, but now something has happened. Something has made it a little, just a little less. To my great joy, I will be quite honest about it. Already this morning, I noticed that Peter kept looking at me all the time, not in the ordinary way. I don't know how, I just can't explain. I used to think that Peter was in love with Margot, but yesterday I suddenly had the feeling that it is not so. I made a special effort not to look at him too much, because whenever I did, he kept on looking too. And then it gave me a lovely feeling inside, but which I mustn't feel too often. I desperately want to be alone. Daddy has noticed that I'm not quite my usual self, but I really can't tell him everything. Leave me in peace. Leave me alone. That's what I'd like to keep crying out all the time. Who knows? The day may come when I'm left alone more than I would wish. Yours, Anne. Monday, 14 February, 1944. Dear Kitty, on Sunday evening, everyone except Pim and me was sitting beside the wireless in order to listen to the immortal music of the German masters. Dussel fiddled with the knobs continually. This annoyed Peter, and the others too. After restraining himself for half an hour, Peter asked, somewhat irritably, if the twisting and turning might stop. Dussel answered in his most hoity-toity manner, "I'm getting it all right." Peter became angry, was rude. Mr. Van Daan took his side, and Dussel had to give in. That was all. The reason in itself was unimportant, but Peter seems to have taken it very much to heart. In any case, when I was rummaging about in the bookcase in the attic, he came up to me and began telling me the whole story. I didn't know anything about it, but Peter soon saw that he had found an attentive ear and got fairly into his stride. That meant that he saw that she was listening, and he was interested in talking to her and was able to talk more to her, which we know he's more on the quiet side. "Yes, and you see," he said, "I don't easily say anything, because I know beforehand that I'll only become tongue-tied. I begin to stutter, blush, twist around what I want to say until I have to break off because I simply can't find the words. That's what happened yesterday. I want to say something quite different, but once I get started, I got in a hopeless muddle, and that's frightful. I used to have a bad habit. I wish I still had it now. If I was angry with anyone, rather than argue it out, I would get to work on him with my fists. I quite realize that this method doesn't get me anywhere, and that is why I admire you." Now he's talking to Anne. "You are never at a loss for a word. You say exactly what you want to say to people and are never in the least bit shy." Does that sound like Anne? It does to me. She responds, "I can tell you're making a big mistake," I answered. "I usually say things quite differently from the way I meant to say them, and then I talk too much and far too long, and that's just as bad." I couldn't help laughing to myself over the last sentence. However, I wanted to let him go on talking about himself, so I kept my amusement to myself, went and sat on a cushion on the floor, put my arms around my bent knees, and looked at him attentively. I am very glad that there is someone else in the house who can get into the same fits of rage as I get into. I could see it did Peter good to put Dusel to pieces to his heart's content without fear for my telling tales. And as for me, I was very pleased because I sensed a real feeling of fellowship such as I can only remember having had with my girlfriends. So she's finally able to talk to somebody as a friend. It took her over a year to have this relationship with Peter. There's definitely a crush starting there, but she actually feels like she can talk to him. And that's definitely a stress reliever for her. And we will stop there.